Welcome to the Evans Legacy Financial Podcast, where real people have real conversations about money, mindset, and making moves. I'm your host, Jake Evans, and this show isn't about fluff or hype. It's about educating our community, sharing stories, and giving you the tools to make better decisions in business and in life. Let's dive in. Good morning, everyone. Again, Jake Evans here, Evans Legacy Financial Podcast. And today we have kind of a really cool twist on our show today. I've got a gentleman, Joe C., in front of me with a legendary radio career and a life in the spotlight, how it intersected with a powerful journey of recovery and transformation. Welcome, Joe. How you doing today?
Pretty good, Jake. Thank you for having me in this morning.
Not a problem. See, Joe is a radio veteran, best known for his time on the iconic KFRC Airwaves here in Fresno, where his voice became a staple for thousands of listeners. Beyond the microphone and behind the microphone, he faced personal challenges that led him to make a life-changing decision to get sober. Today, with decades of sobriety, a little hiccup in the middle there, but decades of sobriety still yet, Joe shares how radio shaped his path, how recovery defined his life, and the mindset that keeps him grounded. So, Joe, again, thank you for coming in, man. I got some questions. We're going to just go through this. And what first drew you to radio, and how did your journey lead to KFRC?
Well, when I was a kid in about 1956 in the fifth grade, my parents and I took a trip to Minnesota in our brand new, they bought a Buick station wagon. So we went back to Minneapolis, and they put me in charge of the radio.
Oh, wow. How old were you?
I was 10, 1956.
10. Okay.
And they took me out of school. It was like October during the World Series. So I got to see the Yankees when Don Larson pitched that perfect game against the Brooklyn Dodgers. And I got to see the World Series while I was back there because I wasn't in school. I was on a family leave with my parents. Anyway, they put me in charge of the radio, and I found the stations were playing Little Richard and Fats Domino and Elvis and stuff like that. So when we got back to San Luis Obispo from our trip, I started my path of buying records.
Okay.
And I was buying them on 78 RPM at that time. I didn't have
I remember
a 45.
Those.
Yeah.
I remember those.
And so my first records were on 78, but Fats Domino and Little Richard were the first two records I bought. And always listening to the distant stations at night, pick up a station out of El Paso or something. And I liked the race music, the rhythm and blues. And so became a teenager and started driving in 1962. And, of course, I was always cruising San Luis Obispo listening to the big stations out of Los Angeles.
Right.
Because they played better music and had better disc jockeys. And by the time I was 18, I had my own radio show when I was a senior in high school.
No kidding.
I quit the swim team, and I was off to the races. And so
an athlete as well.
I was an athlete. I was a swimmer. I didn't smoke.
Good for you.
I never smoked cigarettes. Later on, I started smoking, but not cigarettes.
Not cigarettes.
That
all
was
right.
in San Francisco because it was all around me. So I'm on the radio for a couple of years, 64 and 65, and in 66, I get the opportunity to become the producer engineer of the morning show at KFRC in San Francisco.
Okay.
So I land in June of 1966 at ground zero of the cultural explosion that was happening on the West Coast. And I was at ground zero working at the biggest rock and roll station in Northern California.
I'll bet you the hate and all that was just booming at that time.
Oh, it was yeah. We would covering news stories like the Grateful Dead bust at their house in the hate. I went out there with the news department because I was a union engineer, and so they had to have a union engineer record all the sounds for these things.
So just to clarify to people who are listening, and I know a lot of our younger generation may not, we're not talking hate like hate crimes or anything like that.
No, Haight Ashbury.
We're talking about the corner of Haight and Ashbury where the hippie revolution really started and took off.
But that explosion was happening not just in the Haight, it was happening all over the Bay Area. The Grateful Dead were playing down the peninsula. Ken Kesey, the guy who wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was doing the acid tests at dance halls down the peninsula, where they would take a room full of people and they'd all take LSD. This was before they outlawed it. It was in 1966. It was still legal, and so some of the guys who were older than me that I was working with and I was looking up to, these are the guys who were at the top of their game on the radio. There was a lot of alcohol, and there was a lot of pot, and people were taking psychedelics.
Mm-hmm.
I waited a couple of years before I tried it.
So that kind of tells me that was kind of the cult. That was the culture and energy of the station at the time.
All around
when you first started.
It was all around. And plus, there was a lot of alcoholism there. I mean, and these people were some serious drinkers. I'd worked with some guys who had alcohol issues when I was working like down in San Luis Obispo, but nothing to the level of when I got to San Francisco. We're talking these people. They had serious issues with substance.
Are these some of the early signs that this lifestyle, this KFRC and being in the radio might take a toll?
I didn't even think about it. I was working at the most exciting radio station in Northern California at the time, and with the guys who were at the top of their game and some major radio talents, and so I looked up to these guys. And I was producing their shows, so I was given the honor of getting my feet wet at a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
And as time went on and I spent more time with these guys, I was getting exposed to more and more of checking out. And saw the Beatles' last performance at Candlestick Park. I was still a straight conservative kid from San Luis Obispo, and about 6 weeks later, I got introduced to herbal products, and I didn't take another drink for 15 years. Alcohol did not touch my lips.
So, Mike, the next section here is, you kind of talked about the lifestyle and how it was didn't even think about it was taking a toll. And we'll revisit that in a minute, but and you kind of touched on this when you got in there, this was KFRC's like their peak time, right? Their peak era. This
was 1966 when I had just started the Big 610 with the original air staff. That was the first. I worked with 38 different people in my 7 years I worked at KFRC as the producer and engineer of the morning show. I worked with 38 different personalities over those 7 years.
Wow.
So it was an education for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I took it in like a sponge. And then in 1972, I got my own show on a hippie FM rock station in San Rafael over in Marin County while I was still producing at KFRC. So I had 2 radio jobs, and that's where I became Joe Collins. I had to take an also known as an AKA, and RKO General owned my real name.
Got you.
And so I couldn't be who I was, so I became Joe Collins, and.
I was just a kid back then, and I ran in the Bay Area back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And stuff. And I think for some reason, I think I remember that name because I listened to a lot of radio because that's what you did as a kid. You ran around, you listened to radio. And I think I remember that name. So that's interesting.
There are people all over the Bay Area that heard my show on KTIM, and then I'd go in and produce the show at KFRC. And so I had 2 incomes, which was great.
Nice.
And I had an incredible amount of music coming into my life. I was getting free record service, and I was still also buying records. I never stopped going to record stores. That's a big passion of mine.
It's really a kind of a lost form. Really, there's not a lot of records. I mean, what's that big record store? It was right there on. Here in Fresno, Blackstone and Bullard had that.
It was Rasputin's.
Rasputin's had one of the biggest record collections in town,
which was the old Tower Records.
Tower Records.
Yeah.
Yep. So tell me something. You already kind of gave me an idea of working during its peak area. Now we're going to shift a little bit, and I want to ask, how did the pace and pressure of the job impact your personal life? I mean, did you get married, have kids?
Oh, yeah, I got married. I have a daughter who just turned 57, so I got married in February of 1967, a couple of weeks after my 21st birthday.
Okay.
And just before I got married, I was sent out to Golden Gate Park a week before my 21st birthday, about 2 weeks before I got married, to cover for the news department the human being at Golden Gate Park, where Timothy Leary did his turn-on, tune-in, dropout speech. The Grateful Dead were playing. And I had met Jerry Garcia in the fall of 1966. He had come into the KFRC newsroom with one of the guys who became the Chicago 7 during the Democratic Convention in '68, Jerry Rubin.
Okay.
And this guy came in with him, and electric hair and horrible acne scars and stuff. And I met this guy, and then I saw this guy with the acne scars and the electric hair out at the Golden Gate Park being, and I'm out there recording it for KFRC News, and he sees me. He's sitting under the stage, and he sees me and motions me to join him. So I get out of the stage, and he goes, "Ear," and I go, "Eggs," and the guy was Jerry Garcia.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in front of a guy who smoked weed with Jerry Garcia.
Yeah.
I think we can say that, right? There's nothing wrong with that.
I also got to take a ride on Ken Kesey's bus further, the big psychedelic bus. Mm-hmm. He came to KFRC like around August of '66. I was still this straight young conservative kid from San Luis. And he had some of the merry pranksters with him, and they're wearing clown shoes and stuff. Mm-hmm. And they interview Ken Kesey, and I'm recording the interview. And afterwards, he asked myself and the show host who did the interview, we'd like to go for a ride on further. So we go, sure. So we get on this psychedelic bus and take off, and we ride up towards the Fairmont Hotel going up California Street. And suddenly, a couple of the merry pranksters light up these funny-smelling cigarettes. And all I can think was, wow, what would Grandma and Grandpa down in San Luis Obispo think right now? And I was terrified. Well, a few weeks later, I was introduced to that lifestyle, and it took.
It took heavy, yeah. I bet, too. Back in that era, it was probably really powerful.
I was hip, slick, and cool. I didn't think anything was wrong. Mm-hmm. I didn't take another drink for 15 years, but I was in an altered state a lot.
An altered state, yep. So you're going through this. You've got this. It's got the disease has its hooks set in. Can you share a moment? Just a glimpse, that first glimpse when you realized that maybe change might be necessary.
That didn't come till years later. I was in my 40s before I even thought about doing anything about it.
And what did that look like? What was going on at that time?
It was getting darker and darker and darker, and I thought I was having a good time. But after I'd have the good time, the downside was there would be this darkness when I would wake up in the morning or come to, and it was dark. I didn't like the darkness.
So that's that moment.
Yeah.
That moment.
Yeah.
You come to, because in my experiences, I remember back, and I don't have quite the history, but I do have a very fast-paced drinking history, and I remember you don't wake up. You come to the realization that what the hell happened? What's going on? And then you're right. You're enveloped by this darkness.
And why have I spent so much money treating myself to a good time? And I'm thinking I'm going to have a good time, but I'm waking up to the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
That's what really got my attention.
So what was the catalyst for your decision, your first decision to get sober? I
wanted to get her off of my back. And so middle in 1994, I came in voluntarily to an outpatient thing through the 11th hour, and they suggested I start going to meetings. And the first 3 years I was there, I was doing like 3 meetings a week. Mm-hmm. And in 1997, my friend John Stewart suggested, Joey, why don't you try doing 90 meetings in 90 days?
God, I can hear it. You know what? I know John.
Yeah.
And I can hear it. The voice is in my head right now. 90 meetings in 90 days. Yeah.
And I thought,
that.
I can't do that. He says, give it a try. And at the end of that first 90 days, I'd done 127 meetings, and it hadn't killed me.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the next 90 meetings, I did like another 124. But I kept doing at least 90 and 90, and that was in 1997. And I've been on that pace ever since 1997, going to a lot of meetings. I went out in 2016 for 5 hours over a resentment issue, but I was back in meetings the next day.
Mm-hmm. And that's how it works. So you still have your radio skills now. In 97, were you still working radio?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So how did those radio skills, storytelling, discipline, connection, those things help you in this launching and recovery?
I don't even know if one thing had anything to do with the other, because in radio, there's a lot of people that are checking out all the time,
Mm-hmm.
Emotionally, physically, and I like to be connected and plugged in rather than checked out. And that's what AA gave me, was my life back.
Okay.
So I get to wake up in the morning a free man today. But I go to a lot of meetings so I can maintain that lifestyle of being a free man.
So in radio, you're getting up in the morning. You've got and when I talk about discipline and the connection, so you got a discipline.
Oh yeah,
right. You've got a discipline where I'm going to work. I'm going to do functional. We call it functional alcoholic, right? Functional, and still doing everyday deals. But
radio was paying for my lifestyle, so
right.
I had to work.
Right. But there's the connection.
But when I got into recovery, and it was suggested, why don't you get into service? I became accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was showing up on time to do my shows, but that was so I could afford that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started being responsible, you need to be there at 4:15 in the morning to turn on that coffee machine so it's ready by 6:30. So when the matriarchs of this group, your fellowship, show up at 6:30, the coffee will be ready. You didn't want to let them down.
Right.
And so for 9.5 years, I was a secretary, and I always had everything was ready and in place. I never let them down. That's the accountability that I'm grateful that I got. I was being accountable because I was showing up on time to do a show, big deal. But the reason I was showing up on time because I wanted to get paid so I could reward myself on Friday night and check out.
So you use that same skill, but here's the kicker, and I've noticed this in my own recovery. Your motive changed.
Yeah.
The motives. We check our motives, and why am I doing this? Now I'm doing this over here, that same discipline. We're doing that same discipline for a different motive. We want to make sure we're helping. We want to make sure we're giving back. We want to make sure that we're doing something for our community.
Exactly, because when I was showing up for work on time, there were days when I didn't want to be there because I had checked out the night before, so I was fighting the jet lag of whatever it was that I had put into my body. But I didn't want to be there, but you, as a listener, didn't know that because that was my act.
Right, right. So what was the most challenging part of those early days of sobriety?
Trying to put consistent days together of staying sober.
And so how did you struggle with that? What did that look like? I mean, I
was fighting with that voice. See, this disease is very insidious, and it comes with its own voice, and it lies to you. And the voice tells you, this time it's going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
This time you're only going to do a little. This time you're going to show up on time. And the biggest lie was, and this time she won't know.
Right. It's funny that I've been around long enough and I've experienced it enough. I remember when I went to when I had my little business hiccup and sat in the back of a police car, there was a female involved. I was trying to make sure she didn't know, but just so happens that when they pulled us over, she was in the car with me. And that was my wake-up call right there. It was like, boom, and sitting in the back of that car saying, I'm never doing this again, and I got to do something about it. And then I met somebody in recovery who's 30 plus years, and it just, my life changed after that. So I see where now my motives, our motives change. Our motivation for doing what we do. Now, how did and this isn't on my list, but it just came up with this thought of, in those early days of sobriety, you were still doing radio. How did that affect your show, or your did it make your show better? Did it?
I never drank alcohol ever on a show, but I smoked a lot of weed, mm-hmm. and I thought it made me funnier. And then when I started doing shows without the herbal assistance, I realized I could still be as funny as I was when I was in an altered state, and I remembered everything.
There it is, right? Yeah. And people still liked you.
Yeah.
So I understand how this disease works. Is we want to be liked. We want people to like us. So we're drinking and
we're people pleasers.
We're people pleasers.
That's one of our character defects. Is it's so important for us to please people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so lessons learned. How has your perspective on life and success changed over the years? How do you look at life and success? So perspective to me, and I'm going to share it with the listener. Perspective to me is I can walk around my house, and I can walk down the hallway, and the light switches are in a place, and I'm used to that. But then I go and I put on my boots, my work boots, which are 1.5 inches taller, and I walk down that same hallway, and I feel like I'm walking down a different hallway because my 1.5 inch perspective has changed on everything I'm looking at. So to put it in the mind's eye of our listeners, that's what kind of perspective I'm talking about. So how did your perspective on life and success, because even that little bit of a pivot changes everything.
Here's the success that really stuck out to me was that, wow, I'm emotionally present. And today, not only am I emotionally present to anyone who I come into contact in the business world, or if I go to an AA meeting, I'm emotionally present there. But I also, in my life, I got married in 2006, and I inherited grandchildren, and now I have great-grandchildren, and I get to be Grandpa Joe, which is probably the best role I've ever gotten to play in my entire life. Yeah. I was, as a young man, I was Joe the athlete. I was a swimmer, and then I was Joe the radio announcer, and then I became Joe the business person. I have a studio. I make commercials for people. I handle people's advertising. But the greatest role with the most satisfaction is to get to see the joy and the smiles of those granddaughters and great-granddaughters. And when I bring popsicles over, and I say, this is from the Popsicle Fairy.
Right.
Now, they're getting older, and so I don't know how much longer they're going to buy that Popsicle Fairy thing. One of these days, I'm going to have to break the truth to them and say, look, all this time you thought it was coming from the Popsicle Fairy, Grandpa Joe was kind of fibbing to you.
You know what? I don't think
it all comes from the troll that lives under the bridge.
Right. But see, I don't think they're ever going to need to know that, because you're the guy who bring it. Because they believe in you.
But they know that I got a connection with the Popsicle Fairy.
Right.
That's what makes Grandpa Joe special.
Right. So, and I think what I'm seeing is perspective now is, so for example, if I go to a meeting or if I go to work or whatever, and I'm having a rough day or had a rough night or whatever, I'm still sober, but I'm dealing with some darkness or whatever in my life, and I go to work that day, and I'm not practicing these principles in all my affairs, right? The guy that was my friend yesterday can look like a total asshole today. Mm-hmm. I could have a resentment or something like that. So to me, that's kind of the perspective change I'm seeing that you have too. As you know, grandchildren, best thing in the world. People that you come around now, your perspective on the world and life has changed. So you see things differently. Am I correct?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like when I first came into recovery, I did not want to be there. Mm-hmm. They said, "Don't leave till the miracle happens," and I used to kind of scoff at that. Like, what does that mean? And one day it hit me. The miracle for me was one day I no longer wanted to leave. Mm. And so what I do now is I go to meetings every day. I just came from a morning meeting to come in to do this podcast with you. And people say, "Why do you go to so many meetings?" I go, "Because it helps me stay current with my recovery." Mm-hmm.
It helps. And you know what, for me, and I don't go to enough meetings, and I take it from you as an example, but to do more. But when I do go, staying current means that I get to see that it's still working for the newcomer, as well as I get to show that I'm coming up on 14 years. I get to show that new person that it still works.
Yeah.
After 14 years, you know. So I mean, I like that. I like that view. So we're going to talk about legacy and life today. Okay. How do you find your legacy now, both professionally and personally?
Well, I'm still, I still get, I have a few clients and I handle their advertising. So I still get to be active in my industry. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be 80 in January.
Wow, really?
Yeah,
80.
I'll be 80 in January, and I still get to do it. I have a studio at my house. It works, Mm-hmm. And so I get a lot of joy out of being able to be into service that way still.
Okay.
And I started in January of 1964. A couple of days after my 18th birthday was when I started on the radio. And even though I'm not doing a radio show anymore, I still am involved in the process of doing both radio and television advertising.
So what I'm seeing is your legacy is your voice, number one. Number two is those people you still have that do business with, and in yours is your voice does the business, and they're still coming to you, wanting you to do that, and it's going to lead, because those are always going to be around. Just like this podcast, it's always going to be around. It's always going to be online as long as it's maintained by my heirs or whatever. We're always going to have that. So that's kind of what I'm seeing for you. Is your legacy is you're Joe C, man. KFRC.
Well, and God has been really good to me. I'm blessed. I have clients I've had since like the 1980s, and they're still my clients.
And that right there is legacy.
And the reward for the service is the service.
Right. That's awesome. That's powerful. And so if you had a message for someone who's struggling right now, what message would that be? If someone is like out in that darkness, what would you tell them?
Keep coming back.
Right.
Don't leave till the miracle happens, and you don't have to do it alone.
I think that's the biggest part of it. Is we get out there, and that doesn't necessarily just mean alcohol either, or drugs or whatever. And my whole show is based on mindset, and keep trudging, keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Don't let it hold you back. And it's never too late. I didn't get sober until I was 49 years old.
Yeah, I was 48 when I came in. I didn't get sober right away.
Right.
But
exactly.
Here's the thing, though. I kept coming back.
Right. You kept moving forward.
Yeah.
You kept coming back. And I always say, put your butt in a seat. I tell people, go to work. Get up, go to work. Do your job, do the deal. Not necessarily just in sobriety. Yes, go to meetings. Call your sponsor. Do whatever you got to do. But if you can't do or aren't able to do any of that, get to a meeting. Get to a place that's good for you, and surround you with people that are good for you. And you're right, the miracle will happen.
You know what? One of the big rewards I've found in here is not necessarily sponsorship, but just sitting down with somebody and reading the big book with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because the big book, if you do it with somebody else, because I don't read the big book by myself in my living room, but if I'm at a meeting, a book study, mm-hmm. it comes to life for me.
Exactly.
Because you get to share it with others.
Exactly. So before we wrap this up, what's next for you personally?
Probably go to a meeting at noon.
So, I mean, long term, what's up next year? What's Joe gonna do?
My wife and I like to travel, so every summer we go on like a 2-week vacation. She's raising our great grandson, so we don't live together because she's got family stuff going on. But there's nobody else for me, and I'm at peace with that. I kind of enjoy living by myself, and because it gives me a lot of freedom. If I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and want to turn on the TV in the bedroom, I can do that and not distract anybody. But I'm always up early in the morning so I can go to another meeting.
Awesome. So what about professionally? I mean, you're 80. You're
I'll
be 80.
I'll be 80 in January,
Yeah.
and I don't want to go back on the radio. I did that for 54 years. My last show was November 15th, 2018, when I was working for Art LeBeau, doing the Joe Show in the morning over here at Coco 94, and that was an 8-year. My last job was 8 years long, and it was a great experience. And when I retired, I stayed retired. I mean, I'd still do my agency. Maybe I worked 3 hours a week.
Okay. So you still do commercials and stuff like that.
I do commercials, and I get to do it all at home. So I can get at 5 o'clock in the morning. I could be down in my studio downstairs, and doing a service for somebody.
Right. So you're kind of like, I think I'm that same way as when I turn 80. I think I'm still going to be working. Now, I'm a mechanic by trade for many, many years. I don't think I'm going to pretty much be turning wrenches at 80 years old, but I've still got my real estate, my notary, and my
so you're
financial
active.
business. So I'm active.
Yeah, you get to be a part of that circle that you're in, and stay active.
So to wrap it up, where can listeners connect with you or hear more of your story?
Come to an AA meeting.
Meeting. There you go. We do. Hey, if there's anybody out there, and I'm just going to throw this out there, and this isn't an AA plug or anything like that, but if you're struggling, there is a great meeting at the corner of Palm and Shaw, the little church there. If you're struggling, we'd love to meet you there.
That's where I just left. Plus, I go to Fresno Fellowship a lot. I'll go out to Sierra Fellowship. Once in a while, I go out to North Park. But I get to be active, an active participant in the process
and in the community.
Yeah.
And whereas we didn't before, you were, but you weren't. You were doing it for Joe. Now you're doing it for our community.
Exactly.
And I think that's what a lot of my show is about. We check our motives now. We do things for a different reason, and we give back. And I think the biggest thing, and especially for Joe and I alone, it's never too late. 49, 48, 49, 50 years old, starting our life over. I didn't start business until I was 50, 54 years old, 53 years old.
Yeah.
And so final encouragement for anybody seeking their own turning point.
Here we go. Bakersfield Jack said it best. Years ago, he told me, you keep God first in your life, and the rest of your life will be the best of your life.
And I remember that saying. I can hear it again. Yeah. I can hear his voice. Well, thank you again, Joe. I really, really do appreciate you coming in, man.
My pleasure.
It means a lot.
It's been an honor.
And I'm just, everybody, if you have any questions for Joe, put it in the chat, put it in the comments. I'll make sure he gets them. Subscribe, share, and save the episode at evanslegacyfinancial.com/podcast for more inspiring conversations of legacy, resilience, and transformation. Until next time, thanks for tuning into the Evans Legacy Financial Podcast. If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us for more real conversations that move the needle in life and business. Until next time, keep building, keep growing, and never stop chasing what matters.